There are things that happen in this country that you are never supposed to find out about. Events that unfold behind closed doors, in classified rooms, in the middle of the night while the rest of America is asleep. And most of the time, you never do find out. But sometimes, just sometimes, the truth finds its way out. And when it does, it changes everything you thought you knew. This is one of those stories. It was late January 2026, dead of winter, and deep inside the NSA's Cyber Operations Division, an analyst staring at a monitoring screen caught something that didn't belong. A data signature, a flicker, something small enough that most people would have scrolled right past it. But this analyst didn't scroll past it, and thank God for that, because what that flicker turned out to be was the beginning of the most terrifying cybersecurity crisis in American history. Now, here's what you got to understand about the American power grid. Most people think it's one big system. It's not. It's over 3,000 separate utilities, thousands of substations, hundreds of digital control nodes, many of them running on software that hasn't been updated in years, some of it decades old. Security experts had been warning about this for a long time. Nobody listened, and in January 2026, somebody decided to take advantage of that. Because whoever got in, they hadn't just poked around and left. They had been living inside those systems, quietly, patiently, for weeks, and nobody had noticed. What the NSA found when they started digging was not a smash and grab. This was not some teenager in a basement running a script. This was architecture, deliberate, layered, surgical. Somebody had burrowed deep into regional grid control systems across the Northeast, across the Midwest, and, most chillingly, inside the backup failover systems, the ones designed to keep power running if everything else goes down. They had gotten into the safety net, and they had left something behind. Buried inside those compromised systems was dormant code, and not just any code. This was a kill switch, a set of cascading commands that, if activated, could simultaneously knock out substations across multiple regions of the United States. We're not talking about a few neighborhoods going dark. We're talking about a blackout on a scale this country has never seen. In January, in winter, with no warning. But here's what really got people's attention inside those classified walls. When senior officials were briefed, and they were briefed fast, the decision was made, almost immediately, the American public would not be told. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And look, you can argue about that call all day long, but the reasoning was real. If word gets out, panic sets in. People drain gas stations. Hospitals go into emergency mode. Markets tank. And worse, if the attackers found out their kill switch had been discovered, they might hit the button before analysts had a chance to pull it out. So the clock started ticking, and nobody outside of a handful of classified rooms knew it. What followed was 72 hours that most Americans will never read about in a textbook. An emergency task force, NSA, CISA, the Department of Energy, U.S. Cyber Command, working in total secrecy, racing to map every inch of this intrusion before the wrong person made the wrong move. They split into compartmentalized teams. Each team only got a piece of the puzzle. Nobody got the full picture except the people at the very top. And the deeper they dug, the worse it got. The attackers hadn't just found a hole in the fence. They knew exactly where to look. They knew which legacy systems hadn't been patched. They knew which backup nodes were connected to which primary systems. They knew things that take serious time and serious resources to learn, which raised a question that nobody in those rooms wanted to say out loud, but everyone was thinking. How did they know so much? Meanwhile, outside those doors, America kept right on going. Morning commutes, kids at school, patients in hospital beds. None of them had any idea that at that exact moment, teams of exhausted analysts were quietly trying to dismantle a loaded weapon that had been planted inside the country's most critical infrastructure, one line of code at a time, without letting whoever built it know it had been found. By the second night, they'd mapped the whole thing. They knew what the kill switch looked like. They knew the activation pathway, the exact sequence of commands that would start the cascade. What they still didn't know was who built it and when they planned to use it. Here's the thing about cyber attacks. Attribution is hard, really hard. Attackers route through servers across a dozen countries. They cover their tracks. They make it look like it could have come from anywhere. But even the best operators slip up. And buried in the forensic data, analysts found a fingerprint, a behavioral pattern they had seen before in other operations, in other contexts. And when they matched it up, the stakes went from terrifying to something else entirely. Because this wasn't just about the lights going out. Think about what runs on electricity in this country. Water treatment, hospital life support, financial systems, communications. Military infrastructure has backup power. Civilian America does not. A sustained blackout across the Northeast in the middle of January wasn't just an inconvenience. According to internal estimates that were later partially declassified, a 72-hour outage across the affected regions could have killed tens of thousands of Americans from exposure, from medical emergencies, from infrastructure collapse. Tens of thousands of people who had no idea any of this was happening. Someone inside that task force knew exactly what was at stake, and they were running out of time. By hour 68, they had a plan. They called it a surgical extraction. You don't just delete a kill switch, not when it might have automated fail-safes that fire the moment you touch it. You have to go in from every angle, simultaneously, and pull it out all at once. Every team, every region, same moment, zero margin for error. The operation kicked off in the early hours of the third morning. Teams in multiple secure operations centers. Countdown on the clock, commands go out, and then silence. For 4 minutes, nobody knew if it had worked. 4 minutes. If you've never sat in a room wondering whether the eastern seaboard is about to go dark, you don't know what 4 minutes feels like. But then the confirmations started coming in. One by one, region by region, the code was gone. The kill switch was pulled. The grid was clean. America woke up that morning and made coffee, and had absolutely no idea. In the weeks after, investigations continued. Diplomatic back channels opened up quietly, congressional committees got classified briefings, and those vulnerability reports that had been sitting on shelves for years, suddenly people started reading them. But here's where this story doesn't wrap up with a bow. Here's the part that should keep you up at night. This time, they caught it. An analyst noticed a flicker. A task force worked 72 sleepless hours. The extraction worked. The lights stayed on. This time. But the American power grid has thousands of entry points, and the people who built that kill switch, the ones who spent months quietly burrowing into backup systems and failover nodes, they didn't do all that work to give up after one attempt. Somewhere right now, someone is being more careful, moving slower, covering their tracks better. The kill switch is gone, but the hands that built it are still out there. And the lights, for now, are still on.